you see them.
We hear from the Deputy Information Minister and from the Okada Riders Association. My name is Daniel Dadzie. Top Story is brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Top Story is also brought to you by Vodafone. The future is exciting, ready, and GASEM, the nation builder. Now, the Okada Riders Association is tonight fighting government over a directive to the police MTTD to vigorously enforce the law banning the use of motorbikes for commercial purposes. Though the law has been enforced since 2012, it's hardly been enforced. In the light of a promise by the NDC to legalize the operations of a motorbike riders and the NPP government's insistence it will not change the law, government has today been calling on the MTTD to vigorously enforce the laws. Deputy Information Minister Pius Enam Haji told Joy News, and I quote, "Our position is that the law is the law, and it is our duty as a government to ensure the laws of the land are complied with, including the Road Traffic LI, and we will continue to enforce it." He joins us live on the line soon, but first, listen to the Head of Regulation, Inspection and Compliance with the National Road Safety Authority, Kwame Kodua Etiahene, who says Okada is the second contributor to traffic deaths and injuries in the country after pedestrians.
Will regulation deal with the enforcement issue or not? Will they add to the problem or not? Today, the numbers are about 1,000. When you regulate, potentially they will become more than 1,000. Are we in a position to keep a hold on the situation when they become regulated? If we can answer in the affirmative, why not? Because the reality also is that in some parts of this country as of 2020, if you cut out motorcycles, there's absolutely no means of transportation. So you want to ask whether in solving our public transportation needs in those areas, motorcycles should be preferable to metro mass buses or commercial buses, given the safety profile of these vehicles and what we have at play. So we need to reflect, continue to discuss, engage ourselves, look at the safety considerations, best practice as may happen in Rwanda, Nigeria, Benin, Sierra Leone, so that we can take a position that reflects our aspiration. We need to look at the data. For instance, today, if you look at the data very closely, if you take out pedestrians, the next most vulnerable user class to traffic deaths and injuries are motorcyclists. 10 years ago, they were number 9. Today, they are number 2. The last 10 years, cycle fatalities have gone up by 400%. If you take it to 2001, they've gone up by over 1,000% because potentially the enabling conditions are not right. If you look at even our road infrastructure, elsewhere, the roads are designed to create spaces and lanes, particularly for motor riders. In this country, in Accra, we have a mix of traffic. These drivers or riders do not show any regard for traffic regulations. And it makes it a bit complex. So we need to be dispassionate. If we can regulate it in ways that Rwanda have done to the level that it will yield the sort of impact we want to have, maybe we can reflect on it. But the discipline profile of Rwanda, is it the same as the discipline profile of Ghana, such that you have the expectation that the rider in Ghana or Accra will suddenly begin to behave as the rider in Rwanda? These are socio-cultural issues that must also play into the discussion.
That's Kwame Kodua Etiahene. He is with the National Road Safety Authority. He's the Head of Regulation, Inspection and Compliance over there. Let's now go onto the phone lines and speak with Pius Enam Hajide. He's Deputy Information Minister. Mr. Hajide, welcome. When a policeman stops a motorbike rider with a passenger this evening, how does he or she determine if this passenger is paying for the service or not?
Well, thank you very much, Daniel. Good evening to you and to our cherished listeners. I think that this is a question that the police will be best equipped to answer. They have been educated, trained and equipped with the techniques to detect and determine crime sometimes even before it occurs. And so they have their own skills and tools that are available to them. And I think that when we call upon their expertise to respond to some of these queries, they will be in the position to help us.
But it's the position of government that the police must enforce the law, is it not?
Yes, it is the position of government that all laws of this country, including even the LI that the NDC sponsored, promoted, and promulgated in Parliament, should be enforced by any responsible and responsive government. So, yes, indeed, it is the position that all laws of the country should be enforced. It is regrettable, Daniel, that Mr. John Dramani Mahama, in his time as president, even though he sponsored and promulgated this law, if you checked some portions of his green book, he reported himself that he imported motorbikes to be used, motorcycles to be used for Okada against the very same laws that he himself promulgated.
Right.
I think that is a shame and an embarrassment.
We'll get to Mr. Mahama shortly, Mr. Dadzie.
That differs from the position of the current administration that all laws of the land must be properly enforced.
It's that position that I want to question, Mr. Dadzie, because since you're a spokesperson for government, should you not be able to tell us if it's feasible for the police to enforce a certain law that you support?
If it is not feasible that a law should be enforced, then I think that in drafting and promoting that law, there was short-sightedness and there was no proper planning. I do not want to argue that the NDC, when they promoted and sponsored this law, they acted with reckless disregard for consultation and the necessary homework that will have to go into the law. I think that we now have to resolve the challenge of the implementation gap that may exist. And it is not just with respect to this law. There are several laws in this country that you need creative and responsive leadership to be able to fashion out the way in which to properly and effectively enforce these laws.
So how have you increased the capacity of the police to implement this particular law?
Say again, sir.
How has the capacity of the police been increased to implement this law, Mr. Dadzie?
Yeah, the government continues in the efforts to empower the police, build capacities, even training. If you speak to the Ghana Police Service, they will confess to you that even with regards to capacity building and training, for the longest time before this administration came, they had not seen the kind of training and orientation.
Pardon me, Mr. Dadzie, I'm speaking to this specific law. LI 218, I'm speaking to this specific law, Mr. Dadzie. LI 218 provision for Okada
is to empower them to be able to enforce all laws, including this one.
Do you agree that there may be a limitation in implementing this law when it comes to Okada, knowing that you cannot identify persons who are paying and those who are not paying? Do you agree to that?
No, I just answered to you that this is a question of policing technique. And I think that the police are in a better position to respond to the details.
The police is an organ of states, Mr. Dadzie. You speak for states.
I speak for...
You speak for the states, do you not?
No, in general and policy terms, not in the operational technical matters.
So this is a specific issue that has come up as to a law that you support as a government, and we are trying to get to the point to find out whether or not it is feasible and practical to implement at all. Which is why I'm asking you, what is your position on this, Mr. Dadzie?
Well, I have not come across any complaint from the police to the effect that the law is not enforceable. I have come across challenges that have confronted the police, including their general capacity, including the state of their equipment and infrastructure generally, and the government and even police numbers. And government has sought to work assiduously to resolve these challenges. And I'm saying that if you resolve these challenges, what you're doing is enhancing the capacity of the police to deal with all illegalities, including this one that is on reference. And so,
if I'm to understand what you're saying, Mr. Dadzie, that the police has no challenge in enforcing this law?
I don't understand that. I didn't hear that. But
if I am to understand what you are saying, Mr. Dadzie, are you saying the police has no challenge in enforcing this law?
I'm saying that the challenge that the police have cannot and is not limited or restricted to the implementation of this law, and that is why government continues to act in the manner to be.
You stated that point. Pardon me, Mr. Dadzie, the line was a bit unclear at the moment, but you stated
yes.
that point that it's more of a general building of capacity of police, which is why I stated earlier that since we are speaking to this specific issue, granted, if you say the police has expressed no challenge in enforcing this law, my question is that why is it that there is a station for Okada riders at the doorstep of Parliament, as Mr. Kwame Agboja stated yesterday when he was with you on the Super Morning Show?
Well, that's Mr. Kwame Agboja's claim. I'm not aware.
You are not aware that there are Okada riders in front of Parliament?
I'm not aware of any Okada station. I have
seen those Okada riders in several locations, Mr. Dadzie.
Maybe because I'm not a member of Parliament, but I'm not aware of the presence of Okada station within the precincts of Parliament. I do not know that.
I just find it quite surprising, since I assume that State House is a place that you would frequent more often. You have not seen an Okada rider go to State House?
Well, I'm not a member of Parliament. I do not visit Parliament as often as Honorable Agboja may. And so, if you want to interrogate somebody on the location of an Okada station relative to the Parliament precinct, I think that the one who made the allegation will be in a better position. But Daniel, I think that we are moving away from the crux of the matter.
Which is?
What is under contention today is that the two leading political parties are proposing policy interventions. One is that they are promoting the use of Okada, and that is the position of the NDC. And the NPP holds the position that there is a more safer and, if you may, a higher earning intervention, which is the provision we are offering under the Transport Sector Recapitalization Program, which involves leasing of vehicles to persons who are interested in operating in the Okada and in the transport services or in the transport sector. I think that what is under consideration today is that which of these two proposals is more forward-looking.
That consideration will be made, Mr. Dadzie, on the 7th of December. And since you brought it up, there are a few responses that have come to the Vice President's response that I will share with you in a moment. But I want us to wrap up very quickly with this leg of the feasibility of the enforcement of the law, because that is the instance, you would agree, Mr. Dadzie, upon which we reached out to you today, that we wanted to interrogate the police's resolve to enforce this law. Since we are on that point,
I think that the police are very competent. They are able to enforce these and many other laws. What the gap is
I have a direct question to that effect, Mr. Dadzie. I have a direct question in that regard, Mr. Dadzie. The direct question would be...
If you just indulge me to at least finish my sentences, I'm sure you will better appreciate the responses I'm giving. But nonetheless, you proceed.
Yes. Thank you very much for indulging me as well, Mr. Dadzie. Yesterday, you were on Joy FM in the morning with Kwame Agboja, and he mentioned to you that there's an Okada station in front of Parliament House. You're a deputy minister. You're an officer of the state. Before this, from the conversation we're having now, you had no equivocation that the police was able to enforce this law. It did not interest you to investigate what Mr. Agboja was saying, since it's your position now that the police was able to enforce the law?
Daniel, you are suggesting to me that because I'm deputy minister and because I appeared on a program with a member of Parliament who claims that a station exists somewhere, you are putting it to me that it was my responsibility to have gone there within these last 24 hours to verify that claim without any regard to my pre-arranged schedules. Regrettably, unfortunately, Daniel, I've not been able to do that. Maybe when I do find some time in the near future, I may go. But I've had things arranged for both yesterday and today, so I've not been able to verify. That's why I'm saying to you that I think that we are deviating from the crux of the matter, which for me is that there are two propositions that have been made. The NDC is proposing that they want to take a certain line of action. And we are arguing that that line, according to the World Health Organization, they claim in the report submitted in 2004 to Geneva, is that the probability of death in the instance of in the instance of a crash, the probability of death is 20 times higher.
Right.
For somebody who is riding on a motorcycle than for somebody who is riding in a car.
And again, Mr. Dadzie, like I said earlier, we will come to that point in just a moment. But if you would indulge me, let's take a listen to Mr. Solomon Akpanaba, who is Public Relations Officer for the Okada Riders Association. He's been speaking to us on this matter. He says if the police clamp down on them, they will come back. Take a listen, Mr. Dadzie.
Way or solution that you would like to consider. It can never take Okada out of our roads, or you can never ban Okada.
But that's the law. But isn't that the law as it exists now? In fact, Deputy Minister for Information, Daniel Dadzie, has said that as a government, they are asking the MTTU to go ahead and enforce the law as it exists currently, and deal with those who use the motorbikes for commercial activities. How do you respond to such a call coming from government?
Anybody or government that will make that attempt, we are all in this country. We will see the end of it, because it will expose you as the most wicked leader of these hard times, because we are just recovering from coronavirus and its negative consequences, and you want to climb on about almost 1 million people to stop their work. For what? What are your reasons? What are your bases? In Accra, within Accra, you may succeed. But how about places that it takes only the Okada to ensure that the police officer goes to work, the teacher, the nurse, and the farmer or what have you go to work? What about that?
But are you
they will
worried?
not budge. If you go to, there are places in Volta region, if you ask a police officer to go and arrest a motorbike, he will not do. He will rather call the riders and tell them that we are coming to arrest motorists, so don't come. You find it very, very difficult.
So your position is that this directive from government to the police to enforce the law is something that will not materialize, and that it will be impossible to implement the law. Is that your position?
Yes. Previously, the army joined the police in arresting Okada. If you like, ask the army or the police, they would tell you they used to join operation in arresting Okada. What was the end of it? You arrest the next day, you see them. You arrest the next day. I mean, why will you be doing this to your own citizens? Why? It is not about only the Okada. It is about the passengers. They have their reasons for taking the Okada. For all you know, some of them are professionals and they know much about safety, but it is just a need for an alternative means of transport at that time that makes the passengers do that. Take into consideration the price of those who are selling the motorbikes. Some people buy the motorbike for others to do business. All these people, what work are you going to give to them?
So
how about those who are doing the wholesale and retail selling of motorbikes? You see, these are the compelling reasons why we will come out together as a team and then help NDC in campaigning and what have you. It isn't that we are interested in politics. But
so
this
for
government...
for you, it's for the economic reasons. But government's argument is that for the safety reasons, you shouldn't be doing this on the road. There are the statistics about the hundreds of people who are getting injured every day, boarding Okada and losing their legs and all. Isn't that something that should be prioritized over the economic benefit that it brings?
You don't. That is not a tangible reason. If we are rather the sympathy or the concern of those safety issues than government. Is government able to convince anybody in Ghana that regularization is not the way to? Why are you running away? If you care for those who are dying and then wounding or getting wounded on the road, we are saying that let us go regularization. You said no. We want government to come out and we will have a debate with government. Government can let anybody, road safety or whoever, they should come out for a debate. For the person to explain that he or she understood regularization and it is not the way to go.
My final question will be, are you as Okada riders scared in the light of this latest directive from government that the law banning commercial motorbike riding should be enforced by the police and CCD?
Yes. It is because we are worried that we have been talking and then making noise and then pleading with government to reconsider, and it is not working. We are very, very worried because it is going to create a lot of problems in this country. At the end of the day, people will see the president as a wicked person because why under you that all these things will have to happen? Why? Are you the only person who cares for people who are dying on the road? If you really care for them, why are you insisting that you will not regularize? What are your reasons? We have not heard a single person giving one reason why we shouldn't go through regularization. What is either you don't understand the meaning of regularization or you are just wicked.
And that was Solomon Akpanaba. He is PRO for the Okada Riders Association of Ghana. We still have Pius Enam Hajide, who is Deputy Information Minister, with us here on Top Story. Mr. Hajide, how do you respond to this threat that even soldiers have tried to stop them in the past and have failed, and so nothing will change?
Well, if we live in a country where political parties like the NDC actively are promoting and supporting illegalities such as this and can get behind organizations to threaten the state, and you're inviting me to respond to it, it is a difficulty that all of us as a country are confronted with.
Help me clarify what you said, Mr. Hajide. Are you saying the NDC is hiding behind an organization to make threats?
You never allow me to respond.
You made a specific statement. I want to get clarity on that, Mr. Hajide. Are you saying the NDC is hiding behind an organization to make threats to government? Is that what you said?
Well, we are all aware of the position of the NDC, and we know that this group has been acting in concert with the NDC. And so this is strike knowledge. It's an open secret.
Go ahead.
But you see, I've listened to the gentleman, and if he will be truthful to himself, he will admit that. And I can tell from the level of eloquence and all that this is a very lettered gentleman. And I shudder to think that his trade of choice, his vocation, is Okada riding. It is my conviction that the gentleman was compelled by circumstances to get into the trade of Okada riding. And yesterday I shared an experience with a colleague who went to university with me, Thomas, who was compelled by circumstances to do Okada. But when he got recruited under the expanded approach to recruit new teachers because of free SHS, he left the Okada operations and went into his vocation of choice, which is teaching. It is our view that to deal with this matter, the foundational problems must be resolved. And that is why I am excited that government has been acting in a manner to reduce youth unemployment. And if you check the Ghana Living Standard Survey round 7, you will notice that under his watch, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has reduced unemployment by 3.4%. If we continued in that direction, what you'll be doing is that you will be expanding the economy, creating more opportunities for persons like Thomas and I believe the gentleman who you spoke to, who are compelled by circumstances to ply this trade, to move away from it in the first place. Now, number 2, we are saying that there is a law that has been passed. It is the responsibility of any government to enforce and ensure that the laws are complied with. Can you imagine what will happen if car owners all of a sudden decided that they were not going to obey the laws that made getting of insurance mandatory and decided to argue that, well, we are no longer going to insure our vehicles. And because they have formed a group and they have a spokesperson and they have a PRO and they may have a political party coming behind them, so government's position would be that an attempt to enforce the law means that the government, the administration is insensitive, I think that you can see the clear political positioning of the gentleman that you spoke to, and I'm rather saddened at it. But for me, and for us in the MPP, our appeal to the gentleman that you spoke to is a simple question. He wants to operate in the transport sector. Fine. Now, government wants to create one of two vehicles. Government wants to give him a vehicle, a car, on a lease, which is a work and pay basis, so that he can be able to operate within the transport sector in a lower risk but high paying endeavor. Does he prefer the higher risk Okada operation, the higher risk and low earning Okada operation? The choice is his to make.
Now,
if he wants to
John
play
Mahama,
politics,
there's a response to what you said there, Mr. Hajide.
If he wants to play politics,
if you can indulge me for just a moment. John Mahama said today in the Bono East region that promise that was made by Dr. Baumia yesterday is akin to a Sakawa promise. That's the expression he used. He says it's just like the many unfulfilled promises that were made by the NPP in 2016. Your response?
Well, I mean, as for Mr. Mahama and the things he's been saying of late, I'm not sure that you are inviting me to interrogate them. His choice of words are terrible. They defy and defile the high office of the president that he ever occupied. But he is persisting in them. He's calling a whole tribe Sakawa. He's engaged in name calling and so on. I will leave that to the good people of Ghana to make a determination on. But honestly, this is a position that the MPP has taken because we care not just about the votes of the people of Ghana. We care about the lives of not just the riders of Okada, but the passengers that Daniel, have you seen a woman? Have you seen a woman on the Okada before? Women who wear their dresses are unable to climb the Okada and position themselves properly. Have you seen the way the women sit on the Okada? Do you know the dangers that are posed? And that is why I said to you that let us be led by the science. Let us be led by the data. Is it not true that when a crash occurs, the probability that death may occur relative to Okada is higher? Is it not true? Why are we beating about the bush, and why can we not, as players in the media space, fact check and tell the truth that, well, at least these are what the figures are saying, so that the people of Ghana can be properly educated on these matters.
Mr. Pius Hajide, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on Top Story. My name is Daniel Dadzie. It's exactly 6:01. When it's 6, we begin Ghana Connect, where we are basically continuing this conversation. The big question, Okada banned or legalized? We'll be speaking with our experts, guests from across the continent as they bring their perspective on what's happening in Uganda, Nigeria, Rwanda, and then back home in Ghana. Stay with us.
Hey, Charlie. My network is really killing me. I have to pay my uncle's workers valuable money, but